What's up, everybody? I am your host, an evil book made from skin that summons demons, and that is my co-host, a raggedy old cabin in the woods where you will most likely die a horrible death. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where we have once again found ourselves in a creepy cabin with zombie demons summoned from an evil book. That's right, we are back in the Evil Dead universe, and I love it.
It's the Grind Cabin Syndicate.
Well, it's funny. So you may be thinking to yourself, well, what the fuck is going on here? Because first we do like a camp slasher, then a cabin in the woods, then another camp slasher, and now we're back at a cabin in the woods. Well, I'm here to tell you, this podcast, from here on out, is only covering camp slashers and evil cabin movies. That's all we're doing. We're changing the name to Grind Cabin Syndicate Slasher Camp.
I like it.
You like that?
I like it.
Yep. No, it's going to sound odd, but this was all totally just a coincidence. So, I had picked Sleepaway Camp 2 a while back because I was going out of town and I needed something I could kind of write a lot faster than normal. And then, a couple weeks later, I picked Cabin in the Woods because I had been putting it off forever and I loved that movie. I had no idea that Jordan was picking The Burning when he did.
Well, actually, if you remember, I was picking The Burning the week after Sleepaway Camp 2. But no, the week after Hellraiser, they would have all lined up back to back after Hellraiser, and I didn't. But the following pick had to be The Burning.
Yeah.
I had already decided. I put it off a whole pick. That's like a month in podcast time. It had to happen.
Yeah, then the icing on the cake was we made a deal a while back with our friend at evildeadbooks.com. He had never made the book from this movie because it was, I believe he said it was kind of difficult and he had to figure it out. So once he said that he was going to give it a shot and try to kind of come up, see if he could make it, we said, well, if you make it and you sell us the very first one, we will do an episode on the remake and we'll talk about the book. Well, the book showed up this week and it's absolutely fucking amazing. We're definitely going to post some pics, but the point of the story is we didn't plan to do Evil Dead this week.
Yeah, I think so. When I initially talked to him around Christmas time, he had just by coincidence, he had already been working on 2013, and the stars aligned, and we ended up with the very first copy of it, and here we are.
Yeah. So,
and it is fucking incredible.
It is incredible. So it was so cool to watch the movie and every page that they turn to in the movie, I could turn to in my book. And It's dead on. I mean, it's fucking dead on. I know that I have said this before, you're probably like, man, you're beating a dead horse. But if you were looking for an Evil Dead book for your collection, get it from evildeadbooks.com. Because not only are they spot on in the movie, but they're like pieces of art. They're beautiful.
Yeah, so I was watching the special features for this, and they go into the book itself and one of the special features, and they're holding the actual book from the movie, and it is fucking incredible because you don't see the book closed and being held that much in the movie, and somebody holding it and talking about it. It is fucking dead on. When I seen that, I was even more blown away. And for those who have watched our other Evil Dead episodes or listened to them, the inside of 2013 is my favorite inside because it has the red and black pin scratches and stuff in it, and they nailed that. Nailed it. Looks fucking incredible.
Yeah, if you score the remake book, you can literally watch the movie and actually look in your book and literally see the same exact artwork. Dead on. So definitely pick that up if you want to get it. It's worth it. I got 2 of his books now. We'll be getting another one because the original Evil Dead, no, I think the one I bought from Trick or Treat Studios might be the Evil Dead 2, but it blows that thing away, which we plan to I think it might have been last week we talked about we had finally got the stuff to start kind of figuring out the videos on some of the stuff we wanted to show. And we wanted to do one on these books. And I want to compare it to the Trick or Treat Studios because the Trick or Treat Studios was good, but man, like these blow that shit out of the water by far.
Trick or Treat Studios is gonna sue us for that video. Like,
Hopefully
that's
not.
how bad it is. Yeah, there's no comparison. I'm actually currently working on trying to get all 3 of the books.
Yeah.
The original OG, the copy we have here of 2013, and then the Evil Dead Rise. They're all fucking awesome in their own rights, but hopefully we can get all 3 of those and do a good video on them.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do some pictures of them maybe like Wednesday or something. I'll take some pictures and post them after the episode comes out. So with that being said, are you ready to dive into Evil Dead from 2013?
I am.
All right, let's do it.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at grindhousesyndicate.horror.pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and don't want us to hang a bunch of dead cats up in the basement, give us a review. Evil Dead is a 2013 American supernatural horror film directed by Fede Alvarez, and it is the 4th installment in the Evil Dead film series. It stars Jane Levy, Shiho Fernandez, Jessica Lucas, and Elizabeth Blackmore. The story follows a group of 5 people under attack by deadites in a remote cabin in the woods. It had a budget of $17 million and a box office of $97.5 million. The film was produced by Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, and Robert Tappert, who are the producers of the original Evil Dead trilogy. Talks for a 4th Evil Dead film began in 2004 with Bruce Campbell about the possibility for the next film in the franchise. The project was officially announced in July of 2011 with Ghost House Pictures producing it. Raimi and Campbell had planned a remake for many years, but in 2009, Campbell stated the proposed remake was going nowhere and had fizzled out due to extremely negative fan reaction. However, in April of 2011, Campbell stated in an AMA on Reddit, "We are remaking Evil Dead. The script is awesome. The remake's gonna kick ass. You have my word." And the film was officially announced that July.
It's funny. I've seen that Ash or Bruce Campbell was very against the remake.
Yeah.
Like, he was very, very against the remake until they decided the idea of not having Ash in it and somebody having to play his character. And then he was kind of on board after that.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of sounds like Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. Bruce Campbell, I know a lot of people love him, but he's kind of a dick sometimes, man. You remember when that guy went to the original Evil Dead cabin and dug up the time capsule and he took it to that convention and showed it to Sam Raimi, who was stoked. And Sam Raimi took it over to Bruce Campbell, who was at the table next to him. And Bruce Campbell immediately was like, "Y'all need to stay the fuck off that property." And it was like, dude, who cares at this point? Like, the guy didn't get shot. He dug up a time capsule that one of you guys announced to everybody existed. Like, if you didn't want anybody to know about it, just don't say anything. And, yeah, he just had like a very negative reaction to something that everyone else thought was really cool.
Yeah, you know, from what I've seen from him, he seems like he could be a bit of a stick up the ass.
Yeah.
Definitely, though, did not want anybody else playing Ash.
Yeah.
Like, he was totally against every bit of the idea of doing another Evil Dead, especially a remake, until they decided not to do Ash, and then he was completely on board.
Yeah. So, Fede Alvarez was chosen as the director, and much of the cast joined from January to February 2012. Principal photography took place in March and wrapped in May in New Zealand, lasting about a month. In November of 2018, Alvarez confirmed the film's relationship to the original, saying, "It continues the first one. The coincidences on events between the first film and this one are not coincidences, but more like dark fate created by the evil book. That is why Ash's car is still there rusting away." Despite the fact that Alvarez has a background in CGI, they mostly used practical effects in order to pay homage to the original. He confirmed in an interview that the film does not employ CGI except for touch-ups, saying in an interview, "We didn't do any CGI in the movie. Everything that you will see is real." Evil Dead had its premiere at South by Southwest on March 8th of 2013 and was released in the US on April 5th by Sony Pictures. The film received genuinely positive reviews from critics with a fifth installment titled Evil Dead Rise that would be released by Warner Brothers in 2023. An extended version featuring an alternate ending and various other deleted clips and dialogue was aired in the UK on Channel 4 in January 25th of 2015. On October 10th of 2018, Sony Pictures announced the release of the unrated cut on Blu-ray disc and a 2-disc on-demand combo pack with the theatrical version. It was released on October 23rd of 2018. The extended cut is 96 minutes long compared to the 91-minute theatrical cut. Evil Dead was released on Blu-ray and DVD and Blu-ray on July 16th of 2013. The Blu-ray exclusives include commentary from 3 of the cast members and screenwriters. Scream Factory released a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray containing both cuts of the film and an exclusive poster on September 27th of 2022.
Yeah, so I watched it on the Scream Factory 4K, and it looked incredible. I'd seen this movie previously on DVD. Not an old movie, so you wouldn't think that it was that much upscale because it's not super old, but it looked really, really good on the 4K. Plus, Scream Factory's fucking steelbook for it looks
It does. It's
incredible.
awesome.
It is definitely awesome.
It's the best cover for sure.
Man, I think it was a couple weeks ago I had watched a video on Fede Alvarez and was kind of telling you a little bit about it. And I think just this his story alone in this is really an amazing one. He made a YouTube video. He made like a mini movie, put it on YouTube. So the person doing the video did some research, and the first person of like in Hollywood that really came across this was Kanye West before he was crazy. And he put this on a blog that he had, and that's kind of when it blew up. And Sam Raimi had flown him out to Hollywood to, I don't know if it's Sam Raimi specifically that flew him out, but I know that Sam Raimi wanted to do like a feature film version of this short movie that he did. And that ended up getting like caught up in pre-production hell, and he was offered Evil Dead. So this guy had went from like making a YouTube video to getting to being handed fucking the Evil Dead franchise.
And there hadn't at that point there hadn't been an Evil Dead in a long time, so it was going to be a big deal when it came out.
Yeah.
And I remember so many people hating on this movie. And I remember we watched it when it came out and, you know, being so confused because I'm like, man, this is a good movie. Like, it doesn't trample on the first one. It doesn't cut the first one out. And it's great. And I never understood it. And then when Evil Dead Rise came out, everything changed because then everyone hated Evil Dead Rise and loved the remake out of nowhere. And I'm like, I remember most of you motherfuckers talking shit about this movie.
Yeah, I think this movie's incredible. I think Evil Dead franchise is probably one of the most consistent franchises that there is. They have movies, the first, this one, and Evil Dead Rise are the pure horror versions. Evil Dead 2 is kind of mix of horror and comedy, and then Army of Darkness is mostly comedy.
Yeah.
I am one that prefers the horror side of Evil Dead, and I know you are as well.
Yep.
A lot of people disagree. A lot of people love the second one because it has that mix of horror and comedy. I like my Evil Dead scary as fuck, and I think that this movie, I would say, is the scariest movie of the 2000s.
It's
Like,
yeah.
not just, like, 2000. I mean, from 2000 up until now, like, this movie is legitimately scary, and Bruce Campbell was talking about it in some of the bonus features, and he essentially said, like, "Look, we're big horror fans too, like, whenever a movie comes out and there's shit that bores you, we know because it bores us too, and we were gonna make sure that didn't happen." And he said whenever they got, like, the first rough cut of this movie, they were they were like, "Holy shit. This is a fucking scary movie."
Yeah, this movie, so it's only about an hour and a half long. And normally, most of the movies we cover are somewhere around there. This movie took me a lot longer than normal to write out the plot, and I was thinking about it, and the reason why is this movie really, like, after the first 20 minutes is nonstop. It's nonstop.
Yep.
It just there's nothing that you can skimp on when writing out this movie because there's just so much shit constantly happening. And it makes it such an entertaining movie. And it looks fucking great. It nailed the cabin. It nailed the Deadites. The makeup is phenomenal. Man, it just knocks it out of the park. And it has an amazing end scene that I don't think many movies could top at all.
Yeah, this movie is a absolute fucking masterclass in practical effects. And it was hard for me to take notes on it because there was so many awesome practical effects. Like, I would be taking notes and then something else crazy would happen.
Yeah.
I highly suggest to try to watch this movie as the unrated version. I know you said it's like 6 minutes longer, the director's cut, and that's 6 minutes of mostly, I would assume, fucking blood and guts that were cut out for the theatrical version. Man, it's nonstop. Like, I literally got tired of typing praises to how awesome the fucking practical effects were. And that's saying a lot from a director who comes from a CGI background that was directing his first ever full movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
All right, so ratings. Rotten Tom, a 63%. IMDb, a 6.5 out of 10. Letterboxd, a 3.4 out of 5. And the Google average audience rating is a 4.2 out of 5. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find it streaming on AMC Plus/Shudder, or you can rent it at all of the usual places. Are you ready to jump into the plot of Evil Dead?
Let's do it.
All right. So we start out deep in a scary set of woods where we see a young, badly beaten, bloody woman walking, looking for help, when suddenly a dark shadow runs behind her, causing her to jump in fear. She then turns back around where she spots a dark silhouette watching her from a distance and immediately finds a tree to hide behind. And as she is hiding, we see a dirty, gross-looking redneck man sneak up behind her, throw a burlap sack over her head, and throw her to the ground. And as soon as he looks up, he says, "We caught the bitch." His buddy, who is just standing there, hits the girl with the butt of the shotgun, knocking her out. We then cut to the girl chained to a wooden support beam in a basement, where we see that there is also an old witch holding the body of a dead cat. And as the girl begs for help, we see the old lady tell her not to worry as she opens the Book of the Dead. While she flips through the old, blood-soaked pages, we see a man enter the room and walk over to the girl, and this is where we discover that this is the girl's father, Harold, and he has brought her to these people to help rid her of something evil. She then starts pleading with him, attempting to play on his emotions. She even asks him where her mother is, and he responds that she is unfortunately dead, and this young girl killed her. And while Harold wrestles with what he has to do next, we then hear the old lady tell him to just do it, and it's the only way to save her soul. The man then pulls out a bottle of gas and begins to pour it all over his daughter, which, by the way, that was just apple juice. Apple juice, substitute. Looks like gas. I would have believed it.
Looks like apple juice, too.
Yeah. Even after she becomes soaked in gasoline, she continues to plead with him to just take her home. And after a brief hesitation, he then pulls out the matches and strikes it on the box. And as he looks up at her, her eyes turn evil as she screams, "I'll rip your soul out, you pathetic fuck." After this, he quickly drops the match into the gas on the ground, where we see this girl's legs begin to catch fire. And even though she begins burning, she continues to scream horrible things to him as he watches in horror. He then begins to slowly walk backwards as we see the girl's whole body go up in flames, melting her skin off. And as the demon begins to yell and shriek, he aims a shotgun at her and tells her he loves her. She then, engulfed in flames with her hair and skin burnt away, looks him right in the eyes and screams bloody murder one last time. And as he looks back in devastation, he pulls the trigger and blows her head off. And boom, we get the red and black title card, Evil Dead.
I will rip your soul out, you pathetic fuck. Now, if you listen to our other Evil Dead episodes, you know that the Deadites are fucking phenomenal at shit talking.
They are every time.
Every single fucking time they can do some serious shit talking. And Evil Dead always, like, every one of them.
Good openings.
Good opening.
Every time.
Killer intro.
Yep. So after that, we start off with an overhead shot of a red Jeep driving down an empty road surrounded by tall green trees, where it eventually pulls into the front yard of an old, rundown cabin in the middle of the woods. This cabin looks pretty much dead on to the original cabin. So they did a fantastic job building that set.
Yeah, this whole setup, the cabin, the woods, I mean, it screams Evil Dead.
Yep. So the owner of the Jeep gets out, and we see he has brought his girlfriend with him, and they both approach these two other people who are standing out front, and it is now time to meet our main characters. So first we got the guy in the Jeep, and his name is David. Man, we were just talking about this on the fucking Patreon episode.
I didn't know if I should bring that up during the Patreon. Well, I guess these are going to drop at the same time.
They drop at the same time.
But yes, David also.
Yeah.
He gets it.
Apparently it's the number one horror character death name.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes. A study was done, and if your name is David, you are likely to die. Most likely to die in a horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so his name is David, and David used to be childhood friends with this group. But we find out that the friendship was fractured because years ago, he kind of took off and did his own thing, pretty much abandoning everyone and fucking over his sister. We then have his girlfriend, which is the most uninteresting, forgetful character ever, Natalie. And we don't know much about her except for the fact that she has never met any of these people before, and her and David both work at the same place.
You literally forget she's in the movie until she becomes a Deadite.
I've seen this movie like 10 times, and every time I see her in the beginning, and I'm like, oh, I forgot about her. I always forget that she exists in this movie.
Yeah, I always just remember her as Pinhead Deadite.
Yeah. Next is Olivia, and she is a registered nurse, the best friend of David's sister, and is genuinely trying to be welcoming to David, despite what happened in the past. After that, we have Eric, the high school teacher, and unlike Olivia, he is not so welcoming to David. And we can tell here that he is definitely still holding a grudge. And last but not least, we have Mia, who is David's estranged sister, and she is the whole reason this group is here at their family's vacation home. Because unfortunately, she has been hooked on heroin for some time now, and after a bunch of failed attempts of getting clean back home, they have all come out here to allow her to detox and get off of the drugs for good, surrounded by people who care about her and are determined to not let her use again. So, after a brief conversation with Olivia and Eric, David heads around the back to see his sister Mia. And this is a cool scene because we see Mia sitting on the old broke down car, which would look familiar to most of us because this was Ash's car from the original Evil Dead.
There's also awesome cinematography in this scene. The way they shot this, the sun is shining through the trees down at her, and it's phenomenal looking.
So, David goes to see his sister, who is really surprised he actually came this time. And she's also happy because he brought their family dog named Grandpa, who she hasn't seen in some time. While reminiscing about the cabin and catching up a bit, David gives Mia a necklace handmade from buckthorn trees that is supposed to make her will stronger. David's arrival and the gift put Mia in a positive and more determined mood, and she's now ready to kick this thing off. She then hops off the hood of the car and says, "Let's do this." But after a few steps, she then turns and makes David promise that he will stay with her until the end, to which he does. So here's the thing. Maybe it's just me. This could be just my opinion. But why would David bring his girlfriend on this trip? Like, she's never met any of these people, and this is her first time meeting his sister. And she's going to watch his sister go through like agonizing withdrawal from drugs.
Well, so in his defense, he at this point doesn't know prior how bad it is. Because Olivia actually explains, like, yeah, we did the same thing last summer, and it completely failed, and she OD'd, and he's like, holy shit, she OD'd? And they're like, yeah, she literally died. She had to be brought back. So I don't think he quite understood how extreme it was, because he kind of gets there with the mindset of, okay, let's party. Like, it's the first night. All right, let's everybody have a good time. And that's when Olivia stops him and was like, hey, this shit's pretty fucking serious. And she's going to freak out and she's going to try to leave.
Well, he knew beforehand, though, that they were there to get her off drug. That's just I don't know. That's just a weird thing, man. Like, I would personally tell my girlfriend, like, hey, I got to go help my sister. She's got to go through a detox. We're all getting together. This is probably not, I would even be like, my sister probably isn't going to want you there seeing her for the first time getting off drugs. Like, that's, I don't know. I would try to not bring her.
I agree. It's a weird trip to bring your girlfriend on, but like I said, I don't think he knew it was going to be as extreme as it was. I think it was kind of a bad trip for him to be there for, because these two clearly have some friction, some stuff in their past with their mom. They haven't seen each other in a long time. And anybody who's ever dealt with like an addict or an alcoholic knows that once those withdrawals start kicking in and they're not getting their way, they're going to say some pretty awful shit.
Mm-hmm. So after this, we then see Mia and the gang stand around an old well where she says a few words about committing to kicking her habit and promising to never touch it again. And now, with a determined look on her face, we see her pour her remaining drugs down into the dark black hole of the well.
Did they really ride on all this trip with her having heroin on her just so she could do this dump?
Well, she was obviously taking it throughout the trip, so her withdrawals didn't start sooner, I would assume. So yeah, she's going to be doing this the hard way, quitting cold turkey, which if you've ever seen like the show Intervention or any like YouTube videos, you know that it's going to be really fucking rough, which is why they brought her out here so she can't just like run off and get more.
Yeah, and registered nurse Olivia is like, well, 3 days, because after 3 days, she won't hurt anymore and she'll be fine. And I take it she hasn't dealt with many people in withdrawal.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it would be
Yeah,
longer than 3
but
days.
3 days is not the magic number. Some people go through withdrawals for weeks.
So after this, we then see the group head into the cabin, but as David goes to open the door, he realizes that the cabin has been broken into. Totally expecting the intruders to still be in the home, he picks up a metal bar and begins looking around. After not finding any damage or other people inside, they then decide to straighten the place up and prepare for their long weekend. While the group settles in, we see Maya then head to her childhood room and begin to look at old pictures of her friends and family. And while this is going on, David comes in and tries to reminisce with her about the good old days. But the mood quickly changes when Maya and David's mom comes up. And this is where we get a little bit of the backstory about what happened with these two. So we find out here that David picked up and moved to Chicago to start his own life. And right after this, their mom got sick with, I don't know if it was like cancer or something. I don't remember if they actually said what it was. But she ends up in the hospital for a while. Not long after that, their mom's health took a really bad nosedive, prompting Mia to call David to inform him that she was dying. But David, being the selfish asshole that he is, decided not to come back, pretty much leaving Mia to take care of their mother during her last days all alone. His excuse here is that he just started a new job and was waiting for the right time to come back.
Damn, David.
It's like, dude, your fucking mom was dying. Like, it's not like Mia was like, hey, come check out my new apartment.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like, your mom is dying.
Yeah, couldn't get together the right time to come back. Like when somebody's about to die, like the time is right
The
then.
time is now. There are many jobs out there. You only got one mom. So, matter of fact, if you haven't talked to your mom today, pause the episode, call your mom. So, yeah, I don't blame Mia and her friends for giving this fuckwad the cold shoulder all these years. I get it. That sucks, especially considering, you know, they don't seem that old, and Mia is his younger sister, so she was probably dealing with some serious shit at a young age that he obviously didn't bother to check up on her, assist her in any way, just kind of left her to deal with that.
Yeah, and that goes back to my point. I think it was a bad idea to have him here.
Yeah,
Anyway.
they should have started talking or maybe getting together maybe before, a few months before this. But anyway, after he tells her this lame-ass excuse, he then turns around and is somehow surprised to find that she just walks out of the room on him. So a little later, we see David fixing the front door after the damage from the break-in while Mia plays with the dog. We then see Olivia walk over to him and tell him that there's something that he needs to know. And she then begins telling him about last summer when Mia tried to get clean. Now, obviously, David wasn't there for that because, you know, he was probably trying to find the right time to help his sister.
Busy at work.
He was at work. But Eric and Olivia, they were there, and despite their support and efforts to try to help her, Mia gave in after just 8 hours. And that is the reason they all came all the way out here, and Olivia and Eric make it very clear to David that no matter what Mia says later, they cannot let her leave or give in and take her back. And one more really big thing that David has no fucking idea about. Last summer, after the failed attempt to get clean, Mia overdosed and died. Thankfully, though, paramedics brought her back to life. I love how David's like, oh my God, Mia OD'd and no one told me? It's like, yeah, dude, you treat your family like shit and have nothing to do with them, so yeah, I could see why they didn't tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, if your sibling died and you had no idea, that's probably not a good sign.
It's not a good sign. So, despite this unsettling news, dumbfuck David does not commit to the plan and says that if Mia asks him to take her home, he's going to do it.
What about his exact words were, "I came out here to bond with my sister."
Bad time to bond, dude.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he realized how bad her addiction was, because you don't go to somebody's fucking cold turkey withdrawal weekend to bond with them. Like, that's not a bonding experience.
No, not at all. So we then jump to later that night where we see a heavy rainstorm hitting the cabin, and while inside, Mia has entered full-blown withdrawals and is freaking out. So she's in there throwing shit, breaking glass, and screaming about this bad smell, but Olivia is able to calm her down a bit and give her some medication. And we see while Mia is calmly sitting in a chair, she tells everyone that she doesn't know what's wrong with everybody, but there is a smell that smells like something died in here. Now keep in mind, no one else can smell this, just her. But right after this, it is revealed that the dog can also sense it, and he tracks the smell to a small door leading into the basement, which was hidden under a rug. David then pulls the rug away, revealing the small door with this puddle of dried up blood like smeared all over the floor, leading downstairs, and this catches everybody's attention. So David and Eric then head down, and they are able to trace the smell to another door. They then open it, revealing the room we saw in the opening, but it's way worse looking now. We see like 30 fucking dead cats. They're like rotting and fucking just gross, hanging from the ceiling, and Eric is immediately like, witchcraft. This is witchcraft. I know it. I know witchcraft when I see it.
I don't know, man. 30 dead cats hanging up. I probably would have thought witchcraft too.
He's immediately witchcraft.
I've been like, "Where's the hot witch at? Where's she at?"
So
we never really find out about the dead cats thing. Like, we don't ever get like really good insight on that. Like, we know that the lady in the beginning was kind of like a witchy lady, but the dead cats.
So there's something to do with the dead cats to help remove this thing from the soul, because it's in the book, evildeadbooks.com. Get your book and you can check this out. But it's in the book around the same time you're seeing like all the different ways, like the fire and the dismemberment and the burying or whatever. They do have the picture of like somebody holding up the dead cat. So I assume that it's used in the ritual to rid this demon.
Look, this cat's dead. You are dead. You must go. You and this dead cat are both dead.
It's like, go into this cat's body. It's totally still alive. So upon further investigation, they find a book wrapped in barbed wire and black plastic, and the shotgun Harold used to kill his demonic daughter. They then decide that they have seen enough and take the book and the gun upstairs to inform the others. At first, everyone's kind of speechless, but Mia is instantly like, y'all shouldn't have touched that shit, because that's how you get redneck zombie torture family to come after you. So a little later on, we see Natalie and Olivia making everyone some food while Mia paces in circles out in the rain. And Eric oddly stares at the book. And it's kind of like that old saying, curiosity killed the cat.
Well, I actually love that what they did with his character, that he is a history teacher, a high school history teacher. And he is probably one of the few people, or the only person there, but if you had a group of people and you seen this book and you started reading, like, don't fuck with this book, whatever you do. The guy who's the high school history teacher is going to be the one that wants to fuck with the book. He's going to be curious.
Yeah, he just cannot resist what's inside this book.
He's a scholar. He doesn't believe in ghosts.
You would think, though, that he would be like, I know from history that I probably shouldn't fuck with this. It's old, it's wrapped up, and it had a bunch of like dead cats and witchcraft shit. Like, I probably shouldn't be fucking with it. But he does anyway.
He's a history teacher, man. He can't.
Well, he's about to be history.
He can't resist the book.
So he then picks up some wire cutters and quickly removes the barbed wire and rips the black plastic open, revealing an old book with yellowed, aged pages and a crudely sewn together piece pieces of human skin for the cover. He then flips on the desk lamp next to him and opens it up, revealing a page with a satanic goat's head and the words Natu Ram Di Mantu, and we know this as the Book of the Dead. So he quickly begins flipping through the pages where he starts seeing crudely drawn pictures of demons and dead cats and girls on fire. So despite numerous warnings in the book not to read or say it, this fucking guy pulls out a blank piece of paper and begins shading the hidden words from the page. And what does he do next, you may ask? He reads the fucking Latin, which of course summons the dark entity from the woods, which comes flying into Mia's body, who was still out in the yard pacing around. I love this because it's that POV, the demon like flying through the woods, which is a big shout out to the original.
Yeah, that's the classic. And that's been all the Evil Deads. The fucking demon flying through the woods. Love those shots. Those always scream fucking Evil Dead. And then with this book, the inside of this book is by far the coolest fucking one. It's awesome looking. And you would think if you didn't know Latin and it says don't read these words, you would just read it in your head. He's like, he reads it and he's like, wonder what that means.
Yeah. So the demon thing, it runs into Mia, which causes her to collapse to the ground and begin puking. And after taking a second to get it together, she then looks out into the woods where she spots a dead-looking girl in a white dress just standing there. So after this, a now freaked out Mia runs inside where she starts gathering her things and informs everyone that she needs to leave. Olivia tries to calm her down but is unsuccessful. Mia then tries to say that she will continue the detox somewhere else just as long as they can leave the cabin. Olivia and Eric then inform her that they all agreed no matter what Mia says or does, nobody's taking her back until they're finished. So she then turns to David and asks him to take her home, and despite what he said earlier, he refuses and tells her that she should stay. Mia then gets pissed when she breaks the necklace and storms off into her room, grabbing Eric's keys on the way out. Eric then goes to check on her, and when he suddenly realizes that she jumped out of the window and stole his car. So we then jump to Mia, who is gunning it down this dirt road in the middle of the woods in the rain while having this breakdown. And right as she starts to kind of calm herself down, she looks up and sees the dead girl standing right in front of her. Mia then screams and swerves the car, causing it to fly off of the road and down an embankment into a creek. And when the car hits the shallow water, she blacks out. What a shitty friend. This guy came all the way out here. He gave up, days of his life to help her, and she steals his car and wrecks it.
And wrecks it. And not only wrecks it in a fucking, pond of water.
Oh, it's
now
done.
It's done.
Yeah, it's done.
There's no bringing this one back. This whole scene being shot was awesome because they actually shot this in the woods. I guess they made a little pond in a hole they dug, but seeing the outside shots of her swimming through and how they did this, the classic Evil Dead shot of the demon coming from over top through the trees was actually a fucking camera guy on a seat on a zip line.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
They zip lined it in between two trees, and she had to hit her cue, or she was gonna get hit by this fucking heavy ass camera and guy sliding down the zip line. And it was really cool, man. It was really rough on her though. She said there was times where she would miss her mark because her eyes were so sprayed with muddy water. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. Jane Levy kills it in this movie. She's fantastic. I believe this was her first horror movie.
Yeah, and this was a very, very tough shoot on her. Especially the whole end scene. It took them 7 days to shoot. This was a really tough one on her. Bruce Campbell had sent out an email to everybody before, and they're like, this is going to be, because of the practical effects, everything's practical. This is going to be the hardest movie you probably ever do in your life. But he said a really, really cool quote. He said a easy movie to film is a hard movie to watch.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, thought that was good.
So Maya comes to where she gets out of the car and quickly realizes she's in a goddamn creek. And as she attempts to climb out of the mud, she starts to hear her friends call her name. And right as she looks back in that direction, the dead girl rises out of the mud and starts to chase her. Which this was really cool because she's actually laying there the whole time, but you don't realize it in the beginning of the shot. And she just kind of comes up.
Yeah, that bitch coming out of the water is horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, if I looked back and seen that, I would have fucking ran into some thorns probably too.
It's very Japanese horror.
Yeah,
very
it
J-horror.
is. Yeah.
So she fucking takes off running with this thing behind her. And at first, she is doing a good job of getting away when suddenly she trips and falls into this like thorn bush vine thing. So she gets on her hands and knees and starts crawling through this shit. And right before she makes it out, a fucking vine comes to life and grabs her wrist. Mia tries to pull her arm free, but pretty quickly, more vines grab different parts of her body, with one even wrapping around her throat. Despite all this, though, Mia is a fighter and continues to pull away from the vines when suddenly she looks up and sees the dead girl standing just feet away from her. The girl has dark black wet hair, pale skin, bloody wounds all over, and a dirty white dress. She kind of stands there for a moment with her head down and hair covering her face, but when she then looks up to stare at Mia, we see that it is Mia. So the demon has like taken the form of her and is like using this to kind of fuck with her. So this evil Mia then opens her mouth and all of these black, gross looking vine things come out. And we see them like slither like a snake right towards a still restrained Mia. This thing then moves up her leg,
The upskirt.
under her dress, and into her badge.
Yes.
Goes up in there.
So for those who don't know, this pays homage to the 1981 Tree RAPE, thanks to YouTube. They don't like that word, but yeah, the rape scene.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was the scene in the original that stood out the most to me. So I love that they paid homage to it. This one didn't hit as hard as the original one did for me.
Well,
Maybe it's because I was a kid when I first seen that.
We also didn't know like that was going to happen. When we first watched it when we were kids, we had no fucking clue. And I remember, we talked about this in the episode, I remember being confused. I was like, okay, like in most horror movies, like, okay, she just got stabbed, but she also just got stabbed in her privates.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I get older, I was like, there's like no way they really put that in a movie. And then when the internet became so available, I looked it up and yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, regardless, I love the scene. I love that they paid homage. I still think, as recently watching the original one has more of an effect.
It's more raw.
I think, yeah, it's more raw. I think they drag it out a little longer. They cut it kind of short in this one. But it's an awesome scene.
Yeah, I was surprised when they originally put in it because I know Sam Raimi has said in the past that he kind of regrets filming the original scene. Yeah, this thing is like, it's like 10 foot long. And it goes like up into Mia like it's about to like hibernate for the winter or something. Like it doesn't come back out.
It hibernates in her.
So it's safe to say Mia doesn't take this too well and she loses it.
It's the world's worst tampon.
Yeah. So we then cut to Olivia and David where they find Mia huddled up under a tree about 20 feet away from the car. They immediately rush her back to the cabin where Olivia cleans her up and puts her to bed. David starts talking about taking Mia home, but this causes Olivia to get pissed because she claims that because she is a nurse, she is giving her the same treatment she would receive at a hospital. I like Olivia, and I can see why she's like fighting this so hard, but I am going to disagree about that statement. Like, Mia was just in a car wreck and like sexually assaulted by fucking Gandalf's staff. I think that she might need like some scans or some tests or something.
Yeah, She is very offended by that
Yeah.
comment
Mm-hmm.
that they're in over their head, and, I mean, if she is a nurse, she should know that people just on the withdrawal side of things, people do die from withdrawal. Like, some people are so bad off, they have to be medicated so they don't die. And on top of that, in a car wreck, she's like, this is a little further than just a regular
Yeah.
intervention.
Yeah. Oh, and Olivia is also claiming that she thinks Mia's wounds are self-inflicted in order to have an excuse to go back to the city.
Now, I will say the genius of this story, and one thing I really loved about the 2013 one is the way they set it up with this being like an intervention and that this has happened in the past and she gave up after 8 hours. Everything she's saying is kind of something that a addict who's freaking out in withdrawals would say to try to get out of there.
Yeah, and it's also really great because there's a lot of stories that us as horror fans, we have to let go a lot of reality to believe. Like, okay, why are these characters still here? Like they should be gone. Or just kind of stuff like that. And this story, this kind of baseline story, gives them a reason to stay.
Yeah, and that's why I thought the way they set this up was genius.
Yeah, it is a great idea to keep a group somewhere. And it's smart move. So after this debate on what to do with Mia, David then goes into the room to see how she is doing. And needless to say, she's not doing very good at all. She seems to be extremely frightened and very paranoid. Honestly, to me, she kind of looks like she smoked crack. She literally has like the same look in her eyes as like Gary Busey.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Crack face. She's got crack face going on.
You know, Joe Rogan, I smoke crack.
She's got that, like, she's been on, like, a week-long meth bender and hasn't slept. She's
Yeah.
just, like, hallucinating shit at this point.
So David's talking to her, and she tells him that she has to get out of here because there was something in the woods, and she thinks that it has followed them into the cabin. Seeing his sister like this kind of freaks him out, and while heading back out into the living room, he turns and tells her it's all in your head. Because remember, David doesn't believe in paranormal stuff. You know what he does believe in, though? Being a piece of shit friend and family member.
He turns to her and says, I gotta go to work. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
I'll have to find another right time to help you. I do want to say, though, before we jump back in, this is excellent acting by Jane Levy. Like, she's playing the traumatized scene very well.
Yeah, she in the Deadite scenes too.
She
like,
kills it, yeah.
watching the behind the scenes, and they compared like some scenes from Cheryl Deadite to her, and the stuff that she said she watched the original and tried to bring a lot of that Cheryl Deadite brought to the character. And man, once you see that, you really see like every aspect of this, whether it's the addict playing the traumatized girl, the Deadite, like all of it. She is phenomenal in
Yep.
this movie.
So after this, we jump on over to Eric, who is obsessively puzzling over this book, which, I get looking through it because it is super cool. I would be doing that too. But this motherfucker's over here like trying to solve like math equations or some shit. He's got like 17 pieces of paper around him. He's like drawing different symbols all. I'm like, what are you doing?
He's like that meme.
Yeah, with all the math problems. So while that's going on, we see David head downstairs and clean up the 143 dead rotting cats that someone hung up like air fresheners. And once he gets them in a trash bag, he takes the bag outside to the shed where he finds a pretty hefty trail of blood. So he follows it where he finds his very injured dog hiding in this hole that kind of leads under the shed. This next part, I don't like it. You guys should know by now like how I feel about dog deaths, so I'm gonna be very brief. He finds the dog pretty much dead, and David discovers that the dog was beat very badly with a hammer. We then get a flashback shot of a demonic Mia attacking the dog. Now, I'm not sure if Mia really killed the dog or this is just what like David was, picturing in his head. I'm not sure.
I think Mia did. I think Mia did because the very next shot is her in the shower and her shoes are taken off and there's muddy like prints like she's been down in the mud, leading like mud and blood leading to the shower.
Oh yeah, I mean it
So I do
definitely could have really
believe
happened.
that they were inferring that she was the one. She is now obviously full on deadeye at this scene. She's 100% there. So yeah, I do believe she did take the dog out with a hammer, which is awful.
So this pisses David off, and he speed walks into the cabin demanding to know where his sister is, and it turns out she is in the shower, but that does not stop David because he needs to speak to her immediately. He then bangs on the locked bathroom door, yelling for Mia to unlock it, and this is where we see that she is now wearing the white dress, standing under scalding hot water, and acting very demonic. I was watching this scene, and I realized something. I realized why I really enjoy, or at least one of the reasons why I really enjoy Evil Dead movies. And it is because we get these like dope ass possession movies without all the like Catholic priests and God versus Satan, all the church stuff. So we cut all that stuff out that we've seen a million times and we just get just dead on fucking awesome evil possession movies. And that's what I like about it.
But man, Evil Dead 2, they are balls to the wall with
Every time.
horror.
Yeah,
Like,
every time.
this scene where they walk in and she's boiling herself under the water, like that is terrifying. Like the idea of somebody standing there burning themselves with boiling water is just is a very terrifying thought of not even that being you, but to walk in and see somebody that you love that far out of it, that they're literally melting in the water.
Yeah, like another thing too is you remember when we covered the first one and I was saying about how because they would run out of money, they would keep going back and filming a lot of the Deadite scenes. And the reason that the Cheryl Deadite keeps looking different and even moving different is because they had like 3 or 4 different people play the same Deadite, right? That movie, like Evil Dead is so good that you can like look past that. You don't even care because it's so fucking awesome. You're like, I don't care that this is obviously a very different actor and different makeup and everything. Like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, and with the Deadites too, like a lot of those possession movies give you these flashes of imagery of somebody possessed like that. Or we get it 100% in the Evil Dead. Like you see it, it's on the screen. It's not hiding. It's not like they're doing camera tricks. It's right there.
Yeah. I hope that they just continue to constantly make Evil Dead movies.
They're very blunt. I guess that's the best way to put
Yeah.
it. They're very blunt with their brutality and the gruesomeness. It's what us horror fans really want that movies rarely give us.
So David finally breaks down the door where he finds his sister sitting on the shower floor, drenched in extremely hot water to the point where we even see her skin bubble and pop. And she also looks like she's having a fucking seizure. She's pretty bad. She's about 4 shades off from looking like Freddy.
I gotta say, the detail on that practical effect of the blister literally popping as they find her, awesome.
Yep.
Phenomenal.
So we then cut to David rushing down the dirt road in his Jeep with an unconscious, puking Mia in the passenger seat. This trip doesn't last long, though, because we soon see David slam on the brakes as he discovers that a flood has washed out the road and swept away the bridge. So they are now stranded. And while this is going on, we see a freaked out Eric go running over to the book, where he then flips to a couple of pages until he finds the one with the picture of the girl dumping scalding hot water all over herself. So you can see that picture for yourself if you go to evildeadbooks.com. So after realizing that they're fucked now, David then looks back in concern for his injured sister, when while looking through the windshield, we see him lock eyes with Mia, who then gives him an evil smile. So they fucked with the book and read the Latin. They summon the demon. The first person has now been possessed, and they just discovered that they're now trapped. So, by cabin horror movie rules, this means it's time to kick this shit off.
And pretty much from here on out, it's balls to the wall.
Yep. So they return to the cabin where Olivia gives Mia something to knock her out, and once Mia is asleep, an argument starts between everyone about what to do. And right as David attempts to calm everyone down, we see Mia, who is now full-on deadite, come zombie walking out into the living room carrying the shotgun. Mia's makeup here, because this is the first time we really see her look like the deadite. She looks like a corpse. She looks fantastic. They did an amazing job on her makeup.
That's one thing that the Evil Dead movies are always consistent with is
The
the
makeup.
fucking Deadites are awesome.
Yep.
And I would go as far as I love the original. So I'm not even going to compare that because that's one of my favorite movies. But with Evil Dead Rise compared to this, I think the makeup was better in this one.
It was, yeah.
And it
I would
was
agree.
good in Rise.
Mm-hmm.
But this one's top tier.
Yeah, this one is just a little bit ahead of Evil Dead Rise. So everyone sees this and immediately pauses while David attempts to get her to put the gun down, but unfortunately, Mia is possessed by an evil spirit and doesn't give a fuck about what David says and fires the gun in his direction. And when she does this, we see this huge gust of wind blow the doors and windows open, causing total chaos in the cabin, while Mia screams at the top of her lungs. While this is going on, everyone is kind of just sitting there in total disbelief as we then hear a demonic voice say, "One by one, we will take you." And that audio is ripped directly from the original Evil Dead.
Yeah, I believe that's Cheryl.
It is Cheryl,
Cheryl's
yeah.
line,
Yep.
yep.
After the crazy wind finally stops and things calm down some, Mia, who now sounds like a demon from hell, says you are all going to die tonight. After she says this, she just collapses to the floor unconscious, and Olivia recognizes that this is her chance to get the gun. But as she goes to grab it, Mia attacks her, pinning her to the floor, and vomits about 20 gallons of fruit punch daiquiri in Olivia's face. Olivia freaks out over this and pushes Mia off of her, causing her to fall into the basement hole. Eric then sees an opportunity to trap Mia until they figure out what to do, so he quickly rushes over and slams the basement door shut, locking it. And the whole time he's like attempting to get it locked, like she's beating the shit out of it, even with him on top of it, and she's like lifting the door up a few inches, so she obviously has like some kind of super demon strength.
Deadite strength.
Deadite strength. So once they get Mia locked downstairs, David tells Olivia to give her another shot of sedative, which Olivia is hesitant about because it could put her in a coma. And as she runs off to grab the syringe, Eric tells David that he doesn't think it's going to work because he believes that this isn't a medical problem. It has to do with the witchcraft stuff from downstairs.
Well,
And I was like, the witchcraft stuff that you fucking decided to open and figure out the Latin despite people telling you not to fuck with it? That stuff?
But I would be like, who fucking cares if it might put her in a coma? Like she just threw up like half of the blood in her body.
And she tried to kill me.
Yeah. I mean, if the tranquilizer kills her, that sucks. But I mean, at least it might work. At least she
Yeah.
won't be killing anybody.
So after that, we then jump to Olivia in the bathroom attempting to wash the puke blood off of her face and get the medication ready. When suddenly, she sees in the bathroom mirror her reflection. But in this reflection, all of the skin and tissue has been like ripped off of her face, which looks so good. Before Olivia really gets a chance to react, the glass suddenly shatters, scaring the shit out of her. She then starts to hear the pages of the book flipping by themselves, and when it stops, we see a drawing of a woman who has cut her skin off with a blade of some kind. And right as a scared Olivia starts quickly walking towards the door, she suddenly freezes and drops the medication.
Bro, when I first seen that book, the first time I seen this movie, I was like, oh my God, is this bitch about to cut her fucking skin off?
Yep. So it's Evil Dead. It's totally plausible. So we then see her eyes start to roll in the back of her head, the sounds of her neck popping and cracking, and she begins pissing herself, all while standing perfectly still. Back in the living room, Eric hears the bedroom door slam and decides to go check on Olivia, who should have been back by now. Once he heads into the room, he finds that Olivia is in the bathroom with the door shut, and he starts to hear glass being broken. He then slowly walks over to the door and opens it, where he finds the room completely dark. He then shouts Olivia's name a few times but gets no answer. But what he does hear is that something is going on in this bathroom, and the sound of it is very unsettling.
And it's not Olivia drinking water,
No.
which she clearly needs by the color of that pee that ran down her leg.
She's a little dehydrated, you're saying.
She is quite dehydrated.
So he begins to cautiously walk towards Olivia. We see the light in the ceiling, it's like flickering, giving him just enough light to see where he is going, but not enough to see like what Olivia is doing. All he can see at this point is that she is sitting in the shower with her back turned away from him, doing something. So he walks up behind her, he pulls the rest of the shower curtain back, and right as he does this, the light finally stops flickering, giving him the ability to really see Olivia. And as she turns around, we see that her eyes are yellowish red like Mia's, her skin is pale, and she has now sawed through her own skin on her face, pretty much completely cutting her cheek off with a piece of broken glass.
Fuck yes.
Yep. He then freaks out at the sight of this, and as he slowly begins to back away, he slips on a piece of Olivia's bloody skin, causing him to fall and hurt his back on the toilet, which I feel his pain here because like a few months ago, I kind of slipped a little bit in the bath. I hit my knee on the toilet and that shit fucking hurt.
Did you slip on a piece of skin too?
No, I think I just slipped on a wet floor, but hopefully it wasn't skin.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, I like slid and my fucking knee slammed right into the edge of the toilet. And I was like, God damn, that hurt. That shit hurt for like a week and a half.
Bro, I don't care if this toilet fell over my head and broke. If I seen this chick cutting her face off, like, there's nothing stopping me from getting out of that fucking room.
Yeah, if I slip, I'm going to tuck and roll right out that fucking door. So, anyway, he's laid out on the floor holding his back in pain as we see a now very possessed Olivia stand up and move towards him as the bathroom door shuts. She then gets on top of him and stabs him in the shoulder with the glass, causing him to yell out in pain. She then picks up the needle and starts stabbing him repeatedly in the face with it, which, my God, like, can you imagine being stabbed in the face like 30 times with a fucking needle?
Yeah, this whole scene is fucking incredible. Every bit of it. From the time he walks in, she's cutting her fucking face up. The way she starts stabbing him is so animalistic. Like, the chick that played Olivia did a really, really good job at this scene, too, because it's just so, like, animalistic and almost animated at the same time, the way she's stabbing him. And we talk about it. We've mentioned it in other episodes. Every now and then there's something that's, like, we could watch somebody's head get blown off and be fine, but then there'll be something else that's just, like, cringe. It's like, yikes.
Especially
And
eye
a
stuff,
fucking needle in the eye is one of those things.
Mm-hmm. So Eric finally gets tired of being a pincushion and throws Olivia off of him, causing her to hit her head on the sink so hard it breaks and knocks her out. And we then see one of the most fucked up shots of the movie, in my opinion. Eric sits up, removes his now broken glasses, and realizes that the needle broke off and is still stuck in his skin right under his eye. So we then get this close-up shot of him slowly pulling it out. Man.
Bro, just to the second awesome part of this scene, when he throws her off, he literally takes the top of the toilet and he beats her fucking brains in.
Yeah.
Like, he literally, Eric just killed a deadite with his bare hands. I don't know if that's a very common thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
He literally beat this bitch. So not only did we get the awesome face cut, we get the stabbing with the needle repeatedly over and over again. We get the bashing in of her skull, but then we get the fucking close-up of this needle in his eye.
So after he does this, he then spots a very dead-looking Olivia crawling towards him holding another large shard of glass. But Eric's like, I am done with this shit, as he picks up the big piece of like broken sink and straight up beats Olivia's brains in. And right as this is happening, David and the others come running in to see what the hell is going on. And when they open the door, they are horrified by what they see. Where the hell were they at when he first started screaming? When he got stabbed in the shoulder?
I don't know. He was pissed those glasses got broken.
Like, I mean, it was just like a 5-minute scene. And they didn't like, they run in at the end. It's like, God damn, you guys are only like 25 feet away.
I don't know. They probably freaked the fuck out.
Yeah, he's mad his glasses are broken. He's fucking blind now. So, after this, David starts attempting to patch up Eric's wounds, and while this is going on, Eric finally comes clean and admits that he read a passage from that creepy book they found in the basement. Now remember, David doesn't believe in the supernatural, at least as of yet. So, as this is taking place out in the shed, David sends his girlfriend who, what's her fucking name? Like Melissa, Natalie. Her name's
Natalie.
Is it? Yeah, it's Natalie. So he sends his girlfriend Natalie away so she can run back into the house for something. And while in there, she starts to hear all these noises coming from the house, which is like creeping her out. She then hears this loud bang, and when she turns around, she sees the basement door open. So she's like, fuck this, I'm out of here. But right as she goes to open the front door, she hears Mia in her normal voice yell out her name. I don't know how the fuck Mia remembered her name. She just met her like an hour ago.
She's a fucking demonite. She knows everybody's name.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no fucking way. I wouldn't give a flying fuck. I probably would have thrown up if I turned around and that door was all of a sudden unlatched. But there's no way I would go down there and check on her.
There's no way I would go in there by myself.
Granted, I wouldn't go in there with somebody else. This isn't even her friend. This is somebody she just met. Probably in her head, some fucking junkie. Her boyfriend's junkie sister she's never met. I would be like, where's that fucking chain? I'm closing this shit back up. She's not getting out of here.
Well, the whole reason, like, David sends her in there, he's like, you got to go get, like, he's losing blood. You got to go get, like, sugar and water. And I'd be like, he got stabbed by some needles. Quit being a bitch. Like, you're not bleeding to death.
Well, he did get stabbed up, like, cut up pretty good on his shoulder.
Yeah, but I'd be like, just stick some duct tape on there. I'm not going in there. Fuck that.
I don't care if his arm got amputated. I would be like, I'm not going anywhere by myself in this fucking house with all this shit going on.
So, yeah, she calls out her name, and Mia's like, yo, I need some help down here. And, of course, this dumbass girl falls for it. So Natalie, she sees Mia just sitting on the bottom step crying, and she decides to go down there and help her. And right before she reaches the bottom, Mia's voice turns all demony again, saying he's not going to let you leave. And as soon as Natalie hears this, she takes off back up the steps, but she trips on a broken piece of wood, causing her to fall on the floor. And before she can get away from the basement door, she gets pulled back in with the door slamming behind her. So we then fast forward a little bit where we see an unconscious Natalie waking up in the dark basement. We do have a little light shining in through the floorboard so we can see a little bit. And when she wakes up, she looks down and sees a very gross looking Mia down there by her feet. Evil Mia then looks up at her. She looks really gnarly here, like where her burn was, like her skin's starting to kind of fall off, and she's got a bunch of blood like pouring out of her mouth. Very scary looking.
This, in my opinion, this whole scene that we're covering is the scariest, maybe my favorite scene in the entire movie.
It's like the creepiest scene for sure.
Yeah, so for cinematography wise, the dark with the light shining through the board just enough to illuminate part of her face is awesome. It's super unsettling because she's like right at her feet and she's slowly like creeping her way up. And then what she does during the rest of this scene is just fucking top tier creepy as fuck.
So yeah, things get a little sexual here as Mia puts her bloody tongue on Natalie's leg and licks her all the way up, stopping right before she gets to Natalie's hoo-ha. And Natalie then grabs a box cutter from a random box of tools sitting next to her and attempts to get Mia to back off. Mia then looks at her and says, "I can smell your filthy soul," before suddenly jumping forward, snatching the box cutter away, and biting the fuck out of her hand. Mia then extends the blade all the way, looks at Natalie right in the eyes, and licks the blade, effectively cutting her tongue in half like a snake.
Coolest fucking thing in the movie. And that's saying a lot because there's a fucking awesome, a bunch of amazing shit in this movie. The ending is incredible. But goddamn, I've mentioned it before, the weird erotic thing when a girl licks a knife. I don't know what it is. It was in House of a Thousand Corpses.
I do remember this, yeah.
It was in a magazine when I was a kid. I don't know why. It's always stuck with me. But this one was not erotic.
No.
This one was fucking scary.
She then grabs Natalie's head and jams her now deformed tongue into her mouth, basically making out with her as she also pukes blood into her mouth.
This did not win Kiss of the Year.
David then opens the door wondering what the hell is going on, and as soon as the light shines into the basement, Mia jumps away, allowing a traumatized Natalie to get up and run back up the stairs. She looks at David and she's like, "I was totally not cheating on you with your sister."
Like, what the fuck, Nat?
Yeah. After Natalie escapes, evil Mia then says some pretty fucked up shit to David, causing him to slam the door shut, nail it, and put chains on it. So he's not taking any chances here. So later on, when things calm down a bit, David goes looking for Eric, and he finds him sitting in the bedroom trying to burn the book. But when David asks what he is doing, he informs him that he thought it would solve the problem, but he can't get the book to catch fire. So they then take the book out of the fire, and Eric starts showing and explaining it to David, and he basically says that the book constantly refers to this demon. And once this demon takes 5 souls, the sky will bleed again and the abomination will rise from hell. It is somewhat similar to a movie we recently covered, Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah. Why you try to burn this book and you're like, "Oh, it won't burn, so let's take it out and read it." You would think that he would have showed him this shit in the book before they tried to burn it. It's like, "Oh, it won't catch fire. The only other thing we could do, I guess, is read it some more."
But maybe we should say some more Latin in it.
Eric looks for any reason to read this book.
Maybe we'll summon a good guy and they'll fight the bad guy.
Yeah.
We'll summon an army of dead cats. It'll take care of this problem. So Eric then explains that the demon is attached to Mia's soul, and the only way to help her is to kill her. And this bit of info sends David into a rage, causing him to scream at Eric that they aren't killing anybody. David then says that he thinks that the dead cats downstairs had some kind of virus that spread to Mia and Olivia, but Eric says that's crazy. What kind of virus would make you cut off your own face? Honestly, as a big lover of science, there's probably a virus out there that would make you do something like that.
I don't know. I'm with Eric here. Like, if you're not bought in that there's some otherworldly fucked up shit going on here at this point, like you're just purposely denying it.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with him. I would be saying the same thing if I was there. I would be agreeing with everything he says, but I am saying don't count out there being a virus that would make you cut off your own face. That's definitely in the realm.
There's bath salts.
That's what I'm saying. There is some shit out there that makes... I mean, look at when, like, humans get rabies, you know, attacks the brain. They fucking become, like, zombies and, like, fucking bite people and shit and do all kinds of crazy shit.
Become, like, allergic to water.
Yeah.
Not allergic, but you ever see those videos of people, like, trying to drink water? Like, there's a video of a guy in India with rabies, and they're trying to get him to drink water, and his brain will not let him drink it.
Yeah, it just closes his throat up or whatever, won't let him swallow.
Yeah, it's insane.
So I'm saying, man, don't discount some shit like that. There's some wild shit out there. And while they're arguing about this, we see Natalie in the kitchen trying to wash her bite mark from Mia, but as she's doing this, we start to see like black, gooey blood leak out of it. This spreads pretty quickly, taking over her whole hand in seconds and then heading up her arm. She then attempts to run to David for help, but the kitchen door slams before she can make it out. She then falls to the floor where she begins to show the same symptoms as Olivia earlier, where her eyes roll back into her head and she starts uncontrollably shaking. Once she's incapable of moving on her own, the door swings back open, revealing a demonic Mia who has pushed the basement door open as far as it will go, which is, I don't know, we say like 4 inches or so. And she's just kind of sitting there watching, like out of this space with this big smile on her face as she watches Natalie change.
She's flicking her deadite bean.
Oh, for sure. We then start to see Natalie's neck and bones crack, just as we've seen with Mia and Olivia, when suddenly she is able to regain control, reaching down and grabbing one of those electric turkey carvers in order to cut off her own arm. We have seen these used in a couple movies, and I wonder if they're like really strong enough to cut through like flesh and bone like that.
Flesh, yeah. I don't think bone. I thought the same thing. Not an arm bone. Like something that big.
I would love to buy one and like test it and
on
see
somebody's arm.
No, like not a person's arm, but like I don't know, like a fucking big ass chicken bone or something. Like see if it would just cut through. You know that big ass bone and ham? Like just cut through a fucking whole ass ham.
A ham bone?
Ham bone, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it may be. Those things are made for like turkey and hams.
Go to the butcher and be like, give me a big ass fucking bone to try to saw through.
I don't know. See, butchers use like the big ass fucking knives for breaking through bones. You'd think if it was that easy, they'd just have saws.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I will say that Natalie's fucking hand, like getting to watch it in real time as it spreads, looked awesome. The practical effect on that was fucking incredible.
Yeah, did a great job. And right as she is about to start cutting, evil Mia starts yelling. She's like, don't you do it. Don't you cut that fucking arm off, you bitch. We then get this awesome practical effect of her arm being cut off, which is one of my favorite shots of the movie. I love the effect of the arm cut.
So when I was telling you I watched that short documentary thing on Fede Alvarez, this was the scene I was talking about where they were talking about how he insisted on everything being practical effect. And he was so like anal about everything looking so good that this arm blended with her arm so good that she actually used one of those cutters to cut the prosthetic
the real cutter.
arm.
Oh.
Yeah, so she used that and cut through the prosthetic arm, and they had to do a couple takes of it because she hesitated because it looked so much like it blended in so well. It was almost like that phantom limb thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it looks like your arm, so she was having a hard time. Like, she hesitated because there's just that block in your brain to not cut your own arm off.
With a saw.
With a saw, yeah. But that's how good it was done. It wasn't like some cheap, like, shitty practical effect or something coming up behind her. It was blended in really well.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. But right before she finishes, the power shorts out, causing all of the lights to shut off, signaling David and Eric that something is wrong. So they come running into the kitchen where they find Natalie standing by the refrigerator covered in blood. She then tells them that she had to do it and feels better now, and as she turns around, revealing her bloody dangling arm still barely attached to the stump. And I love that, like, when she turns around, the arm just, like, falls off and, like, splats on the ground. And then after that, like, David uses fucking duct tape to seal the wound.
David's like, man, I'm just not into you anymore, Nat. I liked you with 2 arms.
Yeah. So David is taping her arm up and telling her everything's going to be fine. And Eric's like, stop fucking saying that. Like, she just cut her arm off. Like, you said that after Mia burnt herself. You said that after Aaliyah stabbed me 76 times. And now you're saying that again. Like, we are way past everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, nothing is fine here.
No, there's only half of us left.
Yeah. And the people the people who are still alive have, well, at least for Eric's sake, it's done gotten fucked up.
Most of them are fucked up, but David. So after this, Eric begins going through the book again, explaining to David how to stop all of this. And he says that in order to put an end to the demon's antics, the possessed must be cleansed. Now, there are a couple different ways to do this. Number 1 is a live burial of the possessed. Number 2 is body dismemberment. So you got to chop her up in a bunch of pieces. And number 3 is purification by fire. And unfortunately, none of these involve Mia surviving, which really puts David in a hard spot.
And for those with a close eye, that last page, Purification by Fire, is the same page we see in the very opening scene before they set dude's daughter on fire.
Yep. So Eric's like, yeah, we have to kill her or this is just going to get worse and worse. But David still isn't on board and says that maybe Mia just needs a doctor. Maybe she just lost her mind. You know, people snap and they lose their mind. I get that. But their appearance doesn't change that fast. This bitch has red and yellow eyes. Like, her fucking skin is falling off. And how do you explain her losing her mind, like passing over to Olivia and your fucking no-named girlfriend?
Yeah.
Like he's
in denial completely. I would be very aggravated with him at this point. I would be like, you literally have somebody who cut their own arm off. Your sister's locked in the fucking basement, according to you, with her mind lost. We got another girl that cut her face off and now her brains are bashed in. Like this, we are so fucking far past somebody losing their mind. Like you're losing your mind at this point.
Yeah. I kind of understand him saying that maybe at the more beginning of Mia freaking out, but the fact that they look dead now should tell you something is really gone wrong here. It's not something a doctor is going to solve. So apparently, Eric feels the same way we do, and he calls David a fucking coward and informs him that he is going to burn the cabin down with Mia inside. And right after he makes his heroic, I'm going to put a stop to this shit speech, he gets shot in the back with a nail gun.
I do love how he's like, why don't you go off into the woods and hide you're good at?
Why don't you go find a job out in the woods that you can't leave? As he turns around, we see a now very possessed Natalie step out from the shadows, revealing that before she shot Eric, she tested it out on her face first.
Yes, she did. And we get Pinhead, Natalie, Deadite, and it's fucking awesome looking.
Well, Pinhead sees this and he enters the chat and he says, "How you doing, girl? Like your style. Want to go out sometime?"
Pinhead rolls up and he's like, "God damn, girl, what's the gauge on those nails? Fuck."
So before Eric and David can really react to this, she just starts letting nails fly, hitting Eric in the arm and David in the leg. They then kind of split up, going different ways in the living room, and Natalie decides that Eric needs more holes in his body as she goes after him. She ends up shooting him like 20 times before David finally tackles her to the ground, causing her to drop the gun. But after this, she somehow manages to disappear. David then attempts to crawl over to the shotgun, but right before he makes it, he spots Natalie's reflection in the TV coming up behind him with a crowbar in hand. This is the longest crowbar I've ever seen. Crowbar is like 3 feet long, 4 feet long. It's fucking huge.
It needs some good leverage.
A lot of leverage. She then proceeds to beat the ever-loving shit out of him with it until she is shot in the back a bunch of times by Eric with the nail gun.
Yeah, let's shoot the girl who just shot her own head up with a nail gun. That'll stop her.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did stop her from being David.
I don't know. At this point, if I'm Eric, I'm like, let somebody else take the beating for a moment.
Let him get some.
Like, Eric completely pays for opening the book up. Like, I feel bad for Eric by the end of this movie. He gets fucked up by, like, everybody. Yeah. This dude is, like, dead walking. And he's he's the most dead guy there, and he's not even a deadite.
Yeah. So she then starts to walk towards him, and he just unloads this nail gun, but unfortunately, it doesn't even slow her down. She then raises the crowbar up to swing, causing Eric to put his hand up in defense, and when she swings it at him, she catches in between his fingers, essentially ripping part of his hand in two, which looks fucking gnarly.
It looked incredible, like everything else in this movie.
Yep.
Like all the fucking practical effects are great. I love this scene. Like But what amplifies this scene even more for me is Deadite Mia is in the basement screaming with excitement, like banging on the door as she hears Deadite Natalie up there fucking them up with a nail gun. Like, she is stoked.
Yeah. She is like white people when they heard Little John.
She's like got that mob rage mentality. She's
She's hype.
just getting fucking amped up down there.
She did some evil cocaine about it. So she then starts going to town on him with this thing, almost to the point of killing him, and right as she raises it above her head for the kill shot, David blows her arm off with the shotgun. So she's now missing both arms, and she kind of looks like those mannequins on the mall.
Funny thing about this, like when she gets her arm blown off and it goes up against the wall, they built this whole like contraption to pull the arm so it hit the wall in a certain spot. And they tried it over and over again. And what they ended up doing is just having somebody stand offset and toss the arm and it hit the wall. And that came out 10 times better than the probably like 2-day contraption that they built for this thing to fly up against the wall.
Yeah.
And that's what they ended up using.
That's how it goes sometimes.
And that's essentially what Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell were talking about. Like
That's probably
when they made the original Evil
Yeah.
Dead, there was so much shit that didn't work out that sometimes, it was just the most basic shit looked the best, and they
Yeah.
had to constantly find ways to work around constraints.
So she then turns around and turns back into normal Natalie, asking him why he is doing this as he reloads the gun. And this actually works because David puts the gun down and kind of holds her in his lap while she dies. So later on, David drags a very injured Eric outside to the Jeep and begins to pour gas all over the cabin in order to burn it down. But right before he drops his lighter into the gas, he hears Mia singing their mother's lullaby downstairs. So after thinking about it for a minute, he then changes his mind and comes up with another idea. And also, the same time this is happening, we see a lightning strike a tree outside, catching it on fire. We then see a quick montage of him grabbing some tools and supplies from the cabin in the tool shed and building something. He also digs a grave out in the front yard. After he gets his shit all set up, he then heads down to the basement to get the possessed Mia, and of course, she attacks him with the box cutter. She ends up beating his ass pretty good before finally attempting to drown him in this well thing full of water, and right before she kills him, he gets saved by Eric, who knocks her out from behind with the crowbar.
Saved by Eric again.
Yep. But all is not well as David discovers Eric has been stabbed in the gut with the box cutter. He just can't catch a fucking break, man.
No, he sure can't.
Man, if I was him, I would not have went back into the cabin after that nail gun fiasco. Like, he drags him out of the Jeep and I just stayed out there.
No, I will say Eric is a dedicated friend. He has saved.
He's not even friends with him
Not-
anymore.
Well, they kind of hint towards they were like really, really close best friends at one point, because as he's kind of like bleeding to death in this very scene, he says, hey buddy, it's good seeing you. I haven't seen you in a long time. And that kind of goes back to the first thing that he says to him in the movie, which is he complains. He's like, no, you just made us wait here for 2 fucking hours. So obviously these two were really good friends. And one day David left, and then he had been waiting for his best friend to come back for all this time. And that turned into this like animosity. And then David, being the dick friend he is, drops his dead body in a fucking like 4 foot of water.
I know. Like,
no, don't let there be like a chance that he might, bleed out or possibly live. Let's just drown him in the water.
yeah, Eric's, friendship and stuff with him, it makes me hate David so much more.
Yeah, David's a fucking cocksucker.
And then, like, when this scene that I'm about to talk about happens, it's almost like, could I have hated him more? And then he does this, and I'm like, yep, there's still room to go up. So Eric finally dies. And David takes a needle and shoots more of the sedative into a still unconscious Mia. This is like after Eric dies, he just fucking pushes his body into the water, which I'm like, when I seen that, I thought, what if he just passed out from blood loss?
That's what I'm saying.
Now you've killed him.
So he is bleeding out from a bunch of wounds. You pass out from blood loss.
Yeah. Or exhaustion.
Before you die. Yeah. So essentially, Eric more than likely drowned because he was too weak and passed out to swim. Because he dropped him face first in the fucking water.
He could have went into shock.
It would have been easier to set him down on the fucking steps than it would have been to push him off in the water.
If this was, somebody that I was really good friends with and everything, and then he's already saved me multiple times and all this shit, I would at least have the decency to drag his fucking body into, like, a dry area. At least, which we know it was just to, like, the steps, like, 10 feet away. But he was like, eh.
Well, they're on the edge of the steps when this happened,
Yeah,
so he could have literally just sat him on the steps that they were standing at the bottom of. And I would have, after all this, went back and got his body and got it out of there to pay respect for the guy who saved me 15 fucking times in this movie. But no, David's like, I got a job I got to get to.
I'll come back when the right time. I'll come back and get you during the right time. So we then see him take Mia upstairs. He then wraps a plastic bag around her head and he puts a red dress on her for some reason. I personally would not have redressed my sister, but it's David.
Kinda creepy.
He then places her in the grave he dug earlier and begins to bury her alive when suddenly she opens her eyes and begins talking to him in her normal Mia voice. She, of course, does the whole like, oh my God, David, I can't breathe and you're killing me. But David finally gets it, and he's not falling for it this time as he yells, "You're not her," and continues to throw dirt on her body. The demon finally gives up on this trick and just starts berating him about his mom and leaving Mia all alone to fend for herself, which I really do love this scene because her talking through that plastic, like, bloody bag is so fucking creepy.
It is super creepy. But if I was David, I would have never stopped.
No.
I would not have stopped and let that fucking deadite talk shit to me. I would have just been nonstop. Like, fuck you, bitch. You're not my sister.
So this only causes David to get mad and dig faster until he finally buries his possessed sister's body. He then waits a few minutes until he believes that she is dead, and he kind of gets confirmation of this when that tree that was on fire suddenly just goes out. Once he thinks it's been long enough, he grabs the shovel again and starts digging her back up. He then pulls her body from the grave, rips open the bag, and stabs his homemade defibrillator into her chest, attempting to shock her heart back to life.
Really, really, really cool behind the scenes on that shot. So, Fede Alvarez wanted to make him, like, to make it seem so realistic that he actually made them bury Mia. She actually was buried alive during that scene.
Yeah.
And a bunch of the crew member, apparently everybody was like freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was on edge. And he did it so when he was like digging and frantically digging in the movie, it's because he was actually trying to get her out of there.
Yeah.
And they showed like a behind the scenes of her when they dig her out and they're done, they yell cut. And she's like, "Can I get out now?" And she looked pissed. She did not look fucking happy to have to be buried alive.
Yeah, another thing, if you ever have to kill your possessed sister and then bring her back from the dead, this plan would not work. Defibrillators aren't for like when your heart stops. It's made to stop your heart from fibrillating, meaning defibrillator, which makes your heart go back to a normal beating pattern. There could be other ways, but the way that I know that you would bring a heart back to life is you actually have to do what's called heart massage, where you actually stick your fucking hand into someone's body and literally start pumping their heart with your hand. But you cannot just like electrocute a heart back to life.
Well, I love how in movies they always like make a homemade defibrillator.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Like
like
they
that.
always just find like a car battery and make a defibrillator out of it.
No. Yeah, and it's not like they always use it in movies and shows as like to shock someone back to life, but that's not at all what a defibrillator does. It's when your heart starts kind of getting crazy out of rhythm and it puts it back into rhythm.
That's David's job. He makes defibrillators.
But unfortunately, this doesn't work for David either because the car battery dies before she comes back. A very sad David then gives up as he covers her body with a sheet and walks off. But wait, he is soon stopped in his tracks as he hears his name called out. And when he turns around, he finds a normal Mia standing next to the grave. After reuniting and hugging it out for a bit, David tells Mia to stay here while he goes back inside to get the car keys. But while staring at a picture of the group during happier times, he gets stabbed in the neck by a now possessed Eric. Eric got his revenge. Despite losing a ton of blood, David is able to stumble out to Mia, and realizing he isn't going to live much longer, he gives the keys to her, telling her to leave as he pushes her out of the cabin and slams the door shut. David, who now has collapsed in front of the door, grabs the shotgun, preparing to shoot Deadeye Eric as he slowly walks towards him. As he raises the gun to aim, he then changes direction and fires a round right at the gas can, causing the whole place to erupt in flames. Mia, realizing her brother is now dead, steps back and begins to cry as she watches the cabin burn. She then spots the necklace he gave her earlier on the ground, and as she picks it up, we see one lonely drop of blood fall from the sky, landing right in her palm. She then looks up where her face is quickly covered in red as it begins to rain blood.
If you paid attention to the book and you looked at the pictures, this is when the real evil rises, when it starts to rain blood.
Yep. It's when the abomination comes from hell. Now, if you also remember, the book said the demon needed to take 5 souls in order to rise. And when that happens, like it would rain blood and this thing would come out of the ground. Well, it got Olivia, it got Eric, it got Natalie, it got David and Maya. She still counts because she did technically die.
So if David's stupid ass wouldn't have fucking blown himself up and he would have just stumbled out of the cabin after he blew up fuckface, she could have got enough time to possibly get the fuck out of there.
So there is a bit of this was kind of a prop. People picked up on this, because David never turns into a deadite.
He does, though. They show him. They show his eyes turn deadite as he's on fire.
So that's the unrated version. That's the extended cut version.
That's the good version.
Yeah, the theatrical version did not have that in there. So what they did is when they took that out of the theatrical version, what they did was, because they couldn't count David, they counted the girl in the beginning as number 1. So either way, you get your 5.
Yeah, you gotta count it as David. I bet the girl in the beginning, that's a whole separate iteration of the book. Like she burns at the stake, that's that iteration of the book.
So there's fucking blood everywhere, and Mia is super confused by this when suddenly a hand bursts out of the ground and grabs her. She quickly jumps back, where she then watches this gross, bloody demon version of herself climb out of the ground. She then tries to escape in the Jeep, but the demon breaks through the glass, burning her leg as it grabs her. She then runs to the shed where she spots a motherfucking chainsaw, because you can't have an Evil Dead without a chainsaw. But before she can get it started, the demon grabs a machete and tries to attack her with it, causing her to bust through the wall and escape back out into the blood-soaked yard. She attempts to hide under the Jeep while she tries to get the saw started, and as soon as it cranks on, she cuts one of the demon's legs off. The demon then starts to crawl after her, forcing her to escape out of the other side of the Jeep. But as she is crawling away, the demon, with one fucking arm, lifts the Jeep up and rolls it onto Mia, crushing her arm and pinning her there. While attempting to get free, Mia sees the demon crawling towards her, but she can't reach the saw, so she's left with only one other option. She pulls her arm as hard as she can, literally ripping the skin, muscles, and tendons completely free from her hand. So she has now ripped her hand off, just using pure strength. So after that crazy shit, she then grabs the saw, jams her bloody nub into the handle, and says the most badass line of the whole movie, feast on this motherfucker. She then shoves the saw blade into the demon's mouth, pulling the trigger and sawing the ever-loving shit out of this thing, spraying blood everywhere. Which, it's still raining blood, and this makes, in my opinion, one of the coolest shots in horror cinema.
Yeah, the fact that she saws through like a full body practical effect with a chainsaw while having blood rain down, and it was all practical effect. It's a fucking incredible end.
Yeah, I believe, if I remember right, they used like 50 gallons of blood in this
No,
scene.
no, 50,000 gallons of blood in the
Yeah.
last. They used 70,000 throughout the whole
Yeah.
movie. It's insane amount. So this whole shoot took 7 days, this whole last scene. And so they were raining blood down on her for 7 days straight. She said that this was like the most grueling thing she ever did in her life because it was super cold. She was getting rained on by cold water the whole time. And she said there was like scenes of this that she shot that she didn't remember even shooting.
Yeah.
Like she was in such like a mental place of playing this part for so long and having to do these things over and over again while she was wet, cold, freezing in the mud, couldn't see. Like the behind the scenes, every time they'd yell cut, they'd have to come wipe her eyes because she's got this red bloody water running in her face. Yeah, props to her.
Yeah, I'm still looking. I know I've told you about it like a couple years ago, and I've brought it up a couple times where I'm still looking for a big, like, I don't care if it's like printed on a canvas or a fucking framed poster, but of this shot with like the cabin in the background burning. She's got the fucking chainsaw just sawing this fucking thing. There's like blood spraying everywhere. It's amazing. It's an amazing shot. So she ends up sawing this demon completely in half from the head down, which the prosthetic they made looks fucking awesome. So after she kills it, we then see it slowly like melt or sink into the ground as the blood rain stops and the cabin burns down. She then places the necklace around her neck, and right as she turns around, the rays of sun shine through the trees and onto her skin. She then breathes a sigh of relief as she walks away from the cabin and towards the sunrise. The camera then pans to an overhead shot of the book as it quickly flips through the pages and slams shut. And that is the end of Evil Dead. Fantastic movie.
Good fucking from like I would say to the very opening scene's a banger, and then about 20 minutes in on is nothing but awesome shit.
Yep.
Awesome practical effects. Like this, like I said, this movie is, as far as practical effects go, I mean, it's up there with
It's a 10 out of 10 on practical effects.
Yeah, this is like what you put on Practical Effects 101. This is what you show on day one.
Yeah. Let's see. Do I got some facts here that we haven't already covered? We talked about that one. If you take the first letters in the main characters, David, Eric, Maya, Olivia, and Natalie, the letters spell out demon.
You know, demon.
Demon. So in the final script, they cut out many of Natalie's lines. In the original script, she talked more and she was more of an actual character. She even had a backstory about how she and David met. So they took all that out.
She was so boring that they took her lines completely out.
So Fede Alvarez filmed the movie to pretty much make it where you couldn't figure out the year or when the events happened. He did all this on purpose. And this is why we have the absence of like cell phones, computers, tablets, internet, pretty much modern technology. Even the costumes of the characters were selected to be kind of a mix of different ages and enough timelessness to confuse the audience. So kind of what It Follows does.
I really love that this movie started out as a remake, and then it kind of turned into a reimagine of the original story, and then that has now that it's completed, and especially with Rise, we now know that it is a continuation of.
Yep.
Everybody sees it as like a reboot, but it's not. It is a continuation of the original story. It's one of the 3 books.
Yep. Yeah, that was one of my favorite things when we covered Rise was discovering, because remember, Rise even does like the different demon eyes from different deadites, right? And then we find out that there's actually 3 books of the dead, this being one of them. So, really great way to kind of pull everything together.
I believe on that tape too, that's Bruce Campbell who's the one explaining that.
So, ratings and kill count. So, I didn't count like the deadite kills. So, total just straight up kills is 7. You got the teenage girl who was set on fire and shot, Olivia who was possessed, head bashed in with the sink, Natalie who was possessed, shot and bled out, Eric was stabbed with glass, a needle, and shot with a nail gun, beat with a crowbar, and finally stabbed with a box cutter.
And then set on fire.
And then blown up. David, who was killed in the cabin fire. Mia, who she was buried alive. She actually, I counted her because she did die, technically. And the abomination / demon from hell was chainsawed in half by Mia.
Good stuff.
Um,
All very good stuff. Makes you wonder if David had not thrown Eric's body in the water to drown and die immediately, would he have already been a deadite there to kill him at the end?
I don't know. Good question. I don't know. So, favorite kill. So, you went first last week. I'll go. My favorite kill, hands down, the abomination. Love it. Love the scene. Had a really hard time for my second kill. But I went with the Mia buried alive because the bag over the face, it freaks me out. We talked about it. I talked about it when we did the episode The Den, how like some reason like plastic bags over heads, it just fucks with me. It fucks with me way too much. I don't like it. I would literally fucking lose it if somebody put a plastic bag over my head, even as like a joke. I would fucking punch somebody in the face over that.
Imagine then you're getting buried alive too on set.
Oh my God, yeah. So yeah, that was my second favorite.
So mine was the final abomination kill. The fucking chainsaw with the bloody rain. Too fucking awesome to pass up on as the best kill. My second is the whole Olivia death scene.
That was it's so hard to pick, man.
I mean, that whole scene, her cutting her face off, then her attacking Eric and stabbing him with the needle, and then her getting her fucking head violently bashed in with the end of a toilet was fucking awesome.
All right, so my rating of this movie is a 4.9. I love, 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 love everything about this movie, except I don't really like any of the characters except for Mia. I kind of hate them all.
Well, they all have to die, so that's okay.
Yeah, but all the other Evil Deads, I like the characters. Like, there might be 1 or 2 characters I don't like, but I genuinely like most of the characters. I don't like any of the characters except for Mia. I fucking hate David. And the fact that he is, like, the guy all the way up until the end, like, as much shit as everyone else goes through, stabbed, cutting their arm off, getting bit, like, all this shit, and he fucking makes it so long without ever getting injured. Like, he gets drowned for a little bit in the basement.
Well, that's why I love the surprise kill with him at the end.
I like that.
Because you hate him so much, and they play it off like he's gonna live through this movie, and then shank.
Ah, man, I wish they would have just made him a little bit better. The character, I hated him. But yeah, 4.9.
Well, I gave this one a 5.0. Like I said, I think this is, when you're talking about pure horror and scariness and just fucking creepiness and awesome practical effects, I mean, you can't go wrong. Scariest movie, pure scariest movie, I think, of this, I guess it would be Millennium. From 2000 up until now. The fact that it wasn't a full remake, but it ended up being an addition to the OG story made it, with them doing that and still paying homage to the original, I thought was a genius way to do another Evil Dead. I think they couldn't have done it any other way. Had they fully tried to remake it, it would have not been right.
Yeah.
And it would have always been compared to the original. But for them to to add it to the original and still pay homage to it as a remake would. Thought that was genius. Fede Alvarez in his first fucking movie, from a YouTuber to making his first full movie, did an incredible job. The acting, especially from Jane Levy, incredible. The location and cinematography was absolutely perfect for an Evil Dead. The Deadites are some of the best Deadites in the entire series. The Necronomicon was fucking awesome. The shining star of this movie, though, is practical effects. Like, literally every minute or two after, like, a quarter of the way through the movie, there's an awesome practical effect. The best practical effects in this movie don't even come from kills. It's like the knife, the knife tongue, or the arm getting cut off, or her ripping her arm off under the Jeep. Like, all that shit is just fucking awesome looking. This movie was a literal fuck you to CGI.
Yeah. It shows what you can do with practical effects in a day and time like this.
Yeah, and so I rated the original Evil Dead a 5.0 as well. If I was to put them in order, original Evil Dead, that'll always hold a special place in my heart. That's the best one to me. Then this one, then Rise, the three scary, scary ones, and then 2, and then Army of Darkness. That would be my order.
Yeah, I think special effects is definitely the shining star of this, but I also think that right underneath that is costume and makeup, because they also killed it.
Yeah.
Amazing job. Well, that is going to be our thoughts on the Evil Dead from 2013. Once again, we thank you guys for listening. Definitely, if you're looking for an Evil Dead book, go to evildeadbooks.com. You won't be not satisfied.
You won't be disappointed.
I was trying to figure that out. Yeah, I don't know why the word disappointed just left my brain. But please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website. Check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or your shitty, selfish brother who left you to watch your mom die about the show. We hope to see you next time. You got any last words?
Don't read the Latin.
Feast on this, motherfucker.